I used to be terrified of taking pictures in black and white. I was convinced that I was tossing away great colors every time that I was hitting the shutter. But there's one camera setting that removed that fear completely. And it also revealed a signature style that I never knew I could explore this deep. In this video, I'm going to explain which one is it and how it actually gives you the perfect safety net so you never lose the original color file and at the same time look at the world without color, so that you can focus on light, composition, and mood. So here's how it works. By the way, I am Cesar. I shoot around a full-time job as a tech product manager, and this channel is where I document what I'm learning along the way. So let's start from the important part. What was that actual breakthrough? In short, it was discovering a setting that exists pretty much in every modern digital camera, which is the ability to capture in RAW and in JPEG at the same time. And now, that may not even sound like a revolution, but here's the key. You first have to set up your camera to either a film simulation that shoots black and white or to a monochrome option. This right here is where all things change, and here's why. Because when you take a picture, your camera does actually two things at once. First, it gives you that black and white JPEG, which is what you see on your screen, and that is your real-time feedback of the world without color. So the experimentation part that you want to get out of the way, it's out there, it's done. But at the same time, and this is the part that gives you the total peace of mind, at least it does for me, it also saves a full color RAW file. In fact, a RAW file is just the pure and processed data straight from your camera sensor. So all the color information, all the highlights, all the shadows, all the details, everything, it's all in there. So if you get home desperately wishing that you would have the image in color, well, you do. Nothing is lost, and the original color file will be always waiting for you completely untouched. So in short, this simple combo, RAW for safety and black and white JPEGs for vision, is the safety net that just allowed me to experiment more. It removed the fear of commitment that I had and gave me the freedom to explore the world in different styles without actually having to make a permanent mistake. So what I did was switch my camera to this mode and decided just to take pictures in black and white for a month, knowing that my colors will always be there if I panic. And you know what happened? I actually stopped panicking and I started looking at things in a slightly different way. Which brings me to the second part of the video, which is a learning to see again if you must. Once I let go of that fear, of course, things started to change, as I mentioned. First of all, since I was not shooting in color and I was forcing myself to do black and white, I was no longer distracted by the color itself, but what I didn't expect was how much that specifically changed the way in which I was looking at scenes. The first thing I noticed was, of course, composition, because I actually didn't expect this to be impacted by colors. And colors had been such a crutch that I didn't know I was leaning on. For example, blue skies or pretty sunsets have all this time been tricking me into thinking that the photo was great, when honestly, sometimes they were just mid. Without those easy eye-catching colors, I started seeing the underlying structure, so I started looking at things such as leading lines, shapes, symmetry, patterns, and things like a boring crossing can become a powerful scene, because the empty space actually starts playing a bigger role than you would if you have colors around in the picture. I, in the end, started thinking less on colors and more in arranging geometry, let's say. And all in all, this ends up impacting positively the way you frame and the way you're doing color photos in the end, so it's a win-win. The second thing that shifted was how I saw light and shadow, because in black and white, light and shadow aren't just elements in the picture, they are actually the picture. So let's get that straight. I stopped seeing the light as one of the things that just makes stuff visible, let's say, and actually started looking at it as something that gives power, something that I could actually work with and shape the scene with. On one end, you can have harsh sun providing dramatic shadows that bring up the texture, or you can have a cloudy light that can become something that wraps around gently around the subject, and you can even play around by adding some filters in your camera. And by the way, I talked about filters in another video, which you can check over here, but in short, I started to move my feet to find the light I wanted, instead of just shooting whatever was happening when I was there. And the third thing that I noticed was texture and mood. I just talked about texture a few moments ago, but the whole point that I'm trying to make here is that without color, the little textures of a scene actually just pop up more. Things like smooth surfaces or even concrete or sidewalks, all of these things that you don't necessarily see all the time when you're shooting with colors are now visible. So I started noticing this a bit more than I was doing before. And this all connects to mood because texture and mood are directly connected. When you have high contrast and grain, this makes the scene feel more raw and dramatic, whereas on the other hand, if you have a smooth soft tone that actually can make it more dreamlike. Even more if you use a black mist filter, for example. And again, you can just be using a filter, for example, that can compound this feeling. So I started hunting for textures that actually told the stories, moving what a scene looked like to what it felt like. If this is starting to click with you and you're getting some ideas for your own work, well, do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button, because it really helps the channel and tells me that I should be doing more of this specific type of videos. And now what I want to tell you is the things that help me while doing black and white pictures that are a bit unorthodox, let's say. But I also think there are two places where it's a little bit less known and where I also think this actually shines. So the very first one is to think as an archaeologist of your own work. Basically go back to your archive and try to find the photos that you took and were in color that you didn't like because they were bad, and just try to convert them into black and white. Because if you look for images where the colors were distracting, or for example the white balance was off or the scene was too chaotic, then you will realize how many pictures can be saved by simply stripping the color away and doing some minor modifications. This itself doesn't even require you to go out there and take pictures, but nonetheless it will help you and train your eye to see what kind of images work best in black and white, or which images have too many distracting colors. So it's something that you can even start right about now. The second one is actually using black and white as a temporary editing tool, even for your color photos, so hear me out. Basically, when you are in your editing software of choice, I use Lightroom, you switch over to black and white for a moment, just a little moment at the very beginning of your edit session. And now here, without all the confusing color, you can fine-tune your exposure, contrast, highlights, and shadows. And once you get that tonal structure just right, you can bring the color back, and then you will see how the picture looked completely different from what you were expecting, or even what you would probably done without actually going to black and white first. I've been using this technique to make sure that my final color images is built on a solid foundations, let's say. And it's also a fun way to look at your pictures, because some pictures you of course have taken in color and you're not even thinking on processing them in black and white, but then when you do this first step, you realize that they may have an option and maybe even look better in black and white. So here's a small challenge for you. Go to your camera settings right now and set your image to RAW+JPEG, and then put on your camera's monochrome profile. If you go out there and take photographs like this for about a week, let's say, you'll probably discover some things. It at least changed the way in which I was looking at photos, and I think it will help you too. So let me know in the comments if you're going to do this challenge, or maybe you've done it already. What have you encountered? And maybe you don't even like it and also want to tell me why. Well, write in the comments and let's start a conversation. And if you like this video and you're trying to find a good camera to go out there and take pictures on the street, especially one that's good for letting you blend in with the world and be a bit more invisible, we'll have a look at the video over here, because I talked about 5 cameras or types of cameras that can help you do that exactly. So now go have fun creating in black and white, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. What is this? The black balance?